I'm not the kind of man who operates on impulse. I work in systems architecture, enterprise-level infrastructure, the kind where one miscalculation can cost a company millions. My job is to anticipate failure points before they happen, to build redundancies, to keep things running smoothly even when chaos tries to break in. I approach life the same way. Calm, methodical, no unnecessary drama. People who know me would describe me as level-headed. Boring, maybe. The guy who reads the manual before assembling furniture, the one who triple-checks flight times and keeps backup chargers in every bag. I don't apologize for it. This approach has served me well. In my field, panic is expensive. Emotion clouds judgment. You solve problems by breaking them down into component parts, identifying the root cause, and executing a solution. My marriage to Sarah had always been what I'd call stable on paper. We had the house in a good neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, a backyard neither of us used much. We had the combined income that afforded us comfort without extravagance. We had the social circle that validated our choices, other couples our age, in similar stages of life, dealing with similar pressures. From the outside, we looked like we had it figured out, the kind of couple people point to and say, "They're doing it right." But underneath, there was noise, small disagreements that never quite resolved, conversations that felt more like negotiations than connections, a persistent hum of tension that I'd learned to tune out because, frankly, it seemed normal. Everyone's marriage has friction, right? You learn to manage it. You find workarounds. You focus on the things that work and accept that some things just won't. Sarah cared about appearances more than I did. Not in a superficial way, exactly, but in a way that made social validation important to her sense of self. The Instagram-worthy dinners at the new restaurant everyone was talking about. The carefully curated friend groups where everyone had interesting jobs and attractive partners. The parties that mattered for networking and status, not just fun, but strategic. Events where being seen was part of the point. I didn't mind any of it. I just didn't need it. I could take or leave the social circuit. But she couldn't. And I understood that about her. We all have different needs. Hers involved being part of something visible, something that confirmed she was living the right kind of life. Mine involved solving complex problems and coming home to predictability. Tonight's party was important to her. Some colleague's birthday bash at a trendy downtown venue, the kind of place with a wait list and a dress code and a cocktail menu that required explanation. She'd been talking about it for weeks, planning her outfit, coordinating with friends who'd be there, making sure we'd arrive at the right time, not too early, not too late. She'd bought a new dress for it. Black, expensive, the kind that looked simple but wasn't. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready, hair, makeup, the whole process that I'd learned not to rush. I'd agreed to go because that's what you do. You show up, you support, you play your role. I'd put on the dark blazer she liked, the one she said made me look put together, and I'd prepared myself for an evening of small talk with people I barely knew. We'd called a rideshare because she wanted to drink, and I didn't feel like dealing with downtown parking. The driver was quiet, professional, one of those guys who keeps the car immaculate and doesn't try to force small talk. The interior smelled faintly of vanilla air freshener. Smooth jazz played softly through the speakers. I appreciated that. Sarah sat beside me, scrolling through her phone, occasionally showing me a message from someone who'd already arrived at the venue. "Melissa's there already," she said, tilting her phone toward me. "She looks amazing." "Good," I said. "Rachel's running late. She's still getting ready." "Okay." She went back to her phone, thumbs moving quickly across the screen. I watched the city scroll past the window, familiar streets, the transition from residential to commercial, the gradual increase in foot traffic as we got closer to downtown. We were maybe 5 minutes away when she put her phone down and turned to me. "I need to tell you something," she said. Her tone made me glance over. It was serious, but not panicked, measured, like she'd rehearsed this, like she'd been waiting for the right moment and had finally decided this was it. "Okay," I said. She took a breath, not a nervous breath, a purposeful one, the kind you take before delivering news you've prepared for. "I cheated on you." The words landed without ceremony, no build-up, no tears, no trembling voice, just a simple declaration, like she was informing me of a schedule change or a dinner reservation she'd made. I didn't react immediately. My brain did what it always does, processed the information, looked for context, tried to understand the parameters of the situation. The driver kept his eyes on the road. The jazz kept playing. The car kept moving forward. "When?" I asked. My voice was even. Neutral. The same tone I'd use in a meeting when someone presented data I needed to verify. "A few weeks ago," she said. "It was just once. It didn't mean anything. I needed to clear my conscience." Clear her conscience. That phrase stuck. She wasn't apologizing, not really. She was unburdening herself, transferring the weight of her guilt onto me so she could walk into that party feeling lighter, free, absolved. She'd timed this confession for maximum convenience, close enough to the destination that I couldn't make a scene, couldn't demand a long conversation or detailed explanations. Far enough from home that turning back would seem dramatic, disproportionate. She'd chosen this moment carefully, in a car with a stranger driving, where my options were limited and her exposure to consequences was minimal. She expected me to absorb it, to tell her it was okay, to say we'd talk about it later, after the party, when we were home and could process things calmly. She expected me to let her enjoy her night. I know this is hard to hear, she continued, her voice taking on that careful, therapeutic tone people use when they're trying to manage someone else's reaction. The tone you'd use with a child who's upset about something you consider minor. But I wanted to be honest with you. I couldn't keep hiding it. It's been eating at me. I needed you to know. I needed to be truthful. That's important to me. To us. She reached over and put her hand on mine, a gesture of reassurance, of intimacy, like we were in this together now, navigating a difficult moment as a team. I looked at her hand on mine, then at her face. Her makeup was perfect. Smoky eyes, matte lips, the kind of effortless-looking beauty that takes significant effort to achieve. Her dress was new. Her earrings caught the passing streetlights. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready for this party. She'd chosen her outfit carefully. She'd coordinated with friends. She'd planned every detail of her evening, and she'd chosen this moment, in this car, with a stranger driving, to tell me she'd betrayed me. I pulled my hand away gently. "Driver," I said calmly. "Pull over, please." Sarah blinked. "What?" "Pull over," I repeated. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Hesitated, probably wondering if this was some kind of emergency. I met his eyes and nodded once. "Yes, I'm serious." He signaled and eased the car to the curb. We were on a wide avenue, still a good 15-minute walk from the venue, surrounded by closed storefronts and empty sidewalks. The kind of area that's bustling during business hours but becomes a ghost town after dark. I unlocked my phone, opened the Rideshare app, and canceled the ride. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, her voice rising slightly. Not panicked yet, just confused, irritated. I didn't answer. I opened the door and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The night air hit me, cool, clean, a relief after the vanilla-scented interior of the car. "Wait, are you serious?" She leaned across the seat, staring at me through the open door. Her expression was a mix of disbelief and annoyance, like I'd just told a joke that wasn't funny. "You're just going to leave? Right now? We're almost there." I met her eyes. "Yes." "This is ridiculous," she said, her tone shifting from confusion to irritation. "You're being dramatic. Get back in the car." I closed the door. She knocked on the window immediately, her palm flat against the glass. Her face was pressed close, her perfectly applied makeup distorting slightly against the surface. Her mouth was moving, forming words I couldn't hear through the barrier. The driver looked at me through the window, uncertain, probably trying to figure out if he was supposed to wait or go. If this was a domestic situation, he needed to report. If he should offer to mediate. I gave him a small nod. "Go ahead. It's fine. You can leave." He hesitated another moment, looking from me to Sarah and back again. Then he put the car in gear and pulled back into traffic. I watched it disappear down the street, Sarah's face pressed against the rear window, her mouth still moving in words I couldn't hear and didn't need to. Her hand was up, gesturing, demanding I do something, call her back, chase the car, change my mind. I didn't. I turned and started walking in the opposite direction. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. The night was cool, not cold enough for a jacket, but enough that I was aware of the air against my skin. The contrast after the warmth of the car. The street was mostly empty. Occasional cars passing, a few people outside a late-night diner a block over, their laughter carrying across the distance. The distant sound of music from somewhere I couldn't pinpoint. Bass notes thumping faintly, probably from the entertainment district a few streets away. I walked with no particular destination, just movement. One foot in front of the other, a direction away from where the party was, away from where she would be. The sidewalk was uneven in places, cracked and patched, the kind of urban infrastructure that gets fixed just enough to be functional, but never quite perfect. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. I didn't look at it. The first few texts came through rapid fire. I could feel the vibrations in my pocket, each one a tiny jolt of demand. "Answer me." Explain yourself. Come back. The rhythm of someone who expects immediate responses, who isn't used to being ignored. I kept walking. There's a certain clarity that comes with silence. Without the need to respond, to justify, to defend, you can actually think. And what I was thinking was this. She hadn't confessed because she felt guilty. She'd confessed because she wanted permission to stop feeling guilty. She wanted me to absolve her so she could move on, free of the weight, while I carried it for both of us. She wanted to transfer the burden of her choices onto me and then continue enjoying her evening as if nothing fundamental had changed. That wasn't going to happen. My phone rang. I ignored it. It rang again and again. The vibrations became almost constant, a physical manifestation of her panic bleeding into my pocket. I imagined her standing on the sidewalk outside the venue now, or maybe inside the entrance, trying to act normal while her phone blew up with unanswered attempts to reach me. Trying to explain to friends where I was, making excuses, lying, probably, saying I'd gotten a work emergency, saying I wasn't feeling well, anything but the truth. I passed a park, empty except for a man walking his dog, a small terrier on a retractable leash. The dog sniffed a tree with intense focus, investigating the complex layers of scent left by previous visitors. The man looked at his phone, scrolling through something, completely absorbed. Normal life, continuing as it always does, indifferent to the small catastrophes people carry inside them. A bus passed, nearly empty, the interior lights harsh and fluorescent. A woman sat near the back, her head resting against the window. She looked exhausted. I wondered where she was going, where she was coming from, what problems she was carrying that I couldn't see. By the time I'd walked another 10 blocks, my phone had gone from buzzing to a near constant vibration. Calls, texts, more calls. The rhythm of escalating desperation. I imagined her face now, makeup probably smudged from stress, the careful appearance cracking under pressure, her friends asking questions, her making more excuses. The evening she'd planned so carefully falling apart. I didn't feel angry, not yet. I felt something closer to fatigue, the exhaustion of realizing you've been managing something that was already broken, that you'd been putting energy into a structure that had no foundation. Like discovering the building you've been maintaining for years has cracks in the foundation that can't be repaired. You can patch the walls, paint over the damage, reinforce the visible parts. But the core problem remains, and once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. The streets gradually changed as I walked. The commercial district gave way to residential, tree-lined blocks with older homes, porch lights glowing warmly. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere else, a television flickered through curtains. Lives being lived, routines being followed, people moving through their evenings with concerns I'd never know about. I found myself in front of a church, old stone Gothic architecture, the kind that's been there for over a century. The doors were locked, but there was a small courtyard with benches. I sat down. The stone was cold through my pants. I finally took out my phone. The screen was a wall of notifications, 53 missed calls, 72 text messages, 3 voicemails. I scrolled through the texts without opening them, just reading the previews that appeared on the lock screen. The early ones were what you'd expect. Answer me. This isn't funny. Where are you? Call me back now. Then they shifted in tone. People are asking where you are. You're embarrassing me. I'm not going to the party because of you. Everyone thinks something's wrong with you. I told you because I trusted you. That last one almost made me laugh. You trusted me. As if honesty without accountability was some kind of virtue. As if dumping a confession on someone and expecting them to carry on was an act of love rather than manipulation. As if trust was something she'd demonstrated rather than something she'd violated and was now demanding I pretend still existed. The messages kept coming even as I watched. Where did you go? Are you okay? I'm worried about you. The progression was fascinating in a clinical way. From anger to concern, from demands to questions, from accusations to worry. The changing strategies of someone who wasn't getting the response they expected, who was realizing that the script they'd prepared wasn't playing out the way they'd planned. I didn't respond to any of them. The calls kept coming, one after another. I watched them appear on the screen, Sarah Mobile, and watched them roll to voicemail. Then another. Then another. The persistence was almost impressive. Most people would have given up by now, would have accepted the silence as an answer, but she couldn't, wouldn't. She needed me to respond, needed to know where I was, what I was thinking, whether I was going to come back. I silenced my phone completely and put it face down on the bench beside me. The church bells rang. 11 o'clock. I'd been walking for almost 2 hours. I stood up and kept moving, found myself on a main street with more signs of life. A 24-hour coffee shop, the kind with harsh fluorescent lighting and laminate tables that had seen better decades. The windows were fogged with condensation. Inside, I could see a handful of people scattered at different tables, a student with textbooks spread out, a couple having what looked like a serious conversation, a man in a security guard uniform eating a sandwich. I went inside. The bell over the door chimed. The place smelled like burnt coffee and cleaning solution. Behind the counter, a kid who couldn't have been older than 20 looked up from his phone. "What can I get you?" he asked. "Large black coffee," I said. "Sure thing." I paid in cash and took my coffee to a corner booth. The vinyl seat was cracked and patched with duct tape. The table was sticky. I sat down and wrapped my hands around the cup, letting the heat seep into my palms. My phone lit up on the table. Another call. I watched it ring through, the vibration making small ripples in my coffee. Then another. Then another. The barista glanced over at me with a look that said he'd seen this before. Late-night breakups, fights, decisions being made, the wreckage of relationships playing out in public spaces at odd hours. He didn't say anything, just went back to his phone. I drank my coffee slowly. It was bad coffee, bitter and burnt, the kind that's been sitting on the burner too long, but it gave me something to focus on, something simple and immediate. The taste, the temperature, the way it settled in my stomach. The couple at the other table got up and left, their conversation unresolved. The student kept highlighting passages in a textbook, completely absorbed. The security guard finished his sandwich and pulled out a paperback novel. Life continuing, people managing their own problems, the world unconcerned with mine. My phone buzzed again, and again, and again. I let it. Around call number 60-something, I'd stopped counting, a long text came through. I almost didn't read it, but something about the length made me open it. The wall of text that indicated she'd moved past short demands into explanation mode. "I know you're upset. I get it. I really do. But you need to understand. It was just like the photos. It didn't mean anything emotional. It was purely physical. I didn't love him. I don't love him. I love you. You're my husband. That's what matters. That's why I told you. Because I knew you'd understand. Because I knew we could get past this. You're the most rational person I know. You don't let emotions control you. That's one of the things I love about you. So please, please, just talk to me. We can work through this. We're stronger than this. Just call me back." I read it twice. The first time, my brain caught on the overall message, the appeal to my rationality, the framing of her confession as proof of our strength, the implicit assumption that my lack of emotional reaction meant I'd be willing to overlook what she'd done. The second time, my brain caught on something else, just like the photos. What photos? I scrolled up in our message thread, looking for context, looking for what she might be referring to, and that's when I saw it. A preview thumbnail from a conversation I hadn't fully opened before, an image notification from weeks ago that I'd swiped away without thinking because I'd been in the middle of a work call. One of those notifications that appears and disappears before you process what it actually was. I tapped it. The thread opened, and there they were. Explicit messages. Photos. Not just one or two. Dozens. A complete archive of betrayal. Organized chronologically, spanning weeks of my life during which I'd thought everything was normal. Photos taken in our house. Our bedroom. The bed we shared. The nightstand with my book still on it. Visible in the corner of one shot. Our living room. The couch where we watched TV together, now featuring her and someone else. The guest room. Even the goddamn kitchen, someone's bare ass pressed against the counter where we ate breakfast. Timestamps spanning weeks. Late nights when she told me she was working late at the office, staying to finish a presentation. Weekend mornings when I'd been at the gym. My Saturday routine that was so predictable she could plan around it. Weekday afternoons when I'd been in back-to-back meetings, my calendar visible to her. My schedule something she knew intimately enough to exploit. The messages between the photos were worse somehow. Casual, playful, inside jokes, making plans, discussing logistics, talking about me. He'll be out until 7. He never checks. Don't worry. My own predictability weaponized against me. My reliability turned into an opportunity. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't what she'd described in the car. A single incident she'd confessed to clear her conscience. This was an affair. Ongoing. Planned. Deliberate. Executed with the kind of careful attention to detail that spoke to intention, not impulse. I set the phone down on the table and stared at the wall. There was a poster advertising a community theater production from 3 months ago. The paper was curling at the edges. Someone had spilled something on it, leaving a brown water stain in one corner. I focused on it, on the mundane details, on anything but the images still burned into my vision. The barista came over with a coffee pot. "Refill?" I nodded. He filled my cup without comment, without asking if I was okay, without any of the concerned questions people sometimes feel obligated to ask when they see someone clearly dealing with something heavy. I appreciated that. My hands were steady as I picked up the coffee. That surprised me. I thought I'd feel rage, or betrayal, or something sharp and immediate. But what I felt was colder than that, more permanent. It was the feeling you get when a system you've been maintaining finally fails catastrophically, and you realize it's been failing for a long time. You just hadn't been looking at the right diagnostics. You'd been monitoring the wrong metrics, focusing on surface stability while the foundation rotted. I scrolled through the photos again, not out of masochism, out of necessity. I needed to understand the full scope, needed to see what I'd missed, needed to catalog the extent of the deception so I could understand exactly what I was dealing with. Each photo was a data point. Each message was evidence, not for some future legal proceeding. I wasn't thinking about divorce proceedings or evidence collection. It was more fundamental than that. I was updating my understanding of reality, recalibrating what I thought I knew about my life. One message stood out. Her. "Same time Thursday?" Him? "Can't. He's working from home." Her. "Friday then. He has that conference call at 2, goes at least an hour." Him? "Perfect." My own schedule, discussed, analyzed, used to plan the optimal times for my wife to cheat on me in my own house. I finished my coffee, put the phone in my pocket, left cash on the table for the refill, and walked out into the night. I walked for another hour. Aimless. Processing. By the time I stopped again, I was in a different part of the city entirely. A neighborhood I didn't recognize. Residential, quiet, the kind of place where people have lived for decades and know their neighbors' names. It was almost 1:30 a.m. when the calls finally stopped. I assumed she'd given up or passed out or gone to the party and decided to deal with me later. Tried to salvage what she could of her evening, made excuses to friends, drank enough to dull the anxiety. Then, at 1:47 a.m., a voicemail notification appeared. I stood under a streetlight, moths circling the bulb above my head, and I almost deleted it without listening. Almost just let it sit there, unheard, another piece of data I didn't need to process. But I didn't. I played it. Her voice was different now. Tired, a little slurred. She'd been drinking. Not drunk, but enough that the careful control from earlier was gone. The managed tone had evaporated, leaving something raw. "I don't understand why you're doing this." A long pause. Background noise. Music. Distant voices. She was still at the party, or somewhere near it. "I told you because I thought you'd forgive me. I thought we could move past it. That's what people do, right? They work through things. I felt safe telling you. That's what marriage is supposed to be, a safe place. Where you can be honest, where you can admit mistakes and know the other person won't just abandon you." Another pause, the sound of her breathing, slightly uneven. "I didn't think you'd actually leave. I didn't think you'd be this cold. You're always so calm about everything, so rational, so measured. I thought you'd just... I don't know. I thought you'd handle it better. I thought we'd talk it through. You'd be upset, sure, but we'd figure it out. We always figure things out." The background noise got quieter. She must have moved somewhere more private. "But you just left. You just got out of the car and walked away like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. Do you know how that feels? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Everyone's asking where you are. What I'm supposed to tell them? That you abandoned me on the side of the road? That you're ignoring me?" Her voice broke slightly on that last part. Not crying. Not quite, but close. "I guess I was wrong about you. I thought I knew you. I thought we had something solid. But maybe I don't know you at all. Maybe you're not the person I thought you were. Maybe you're just... cold." A long silence. Long enough that I thought the message had ended. "Call me back. Please. We need to talk. We need to figure this out. You can't just throw away 5 years of marriage over one mistake. That's not how this works. That's not fair." The message ended with a click. I listened to it again, and again. There were so many things in that message, so many revealing assumptions. But the line that mattered most, the one that cut through everything else, was this: "I didn't think you'd actually leave." That was the core of it, the fundamental miscalculation. She'd confessed because she assumed I'd stay. She'd built her entire strategy around the belief that I was too calm, too rational, too conflict-averse to do anything drastic. That my stability, my predictability, My careful approach to life meant I'd absorb this damage the way I absorbed everything else, by processing it methodically, by finding a solution, by keeping the system running. She thought she could unload her guilt, get my forgiveness, and continue on as if nothing had fundamentally changed. She'd seen my rationality as a form of weakness, my calm as passivity, my measured responses as evidence that I'd tolerate anything to avoid disruption. She was wrong. The moths kept circling the streetlight. A cat crossed the street several houses down, pausing to look at me before disappearing into someone's yard. Somewhere a door closed, somewhere else a car started. I opened a new message. I typed slowly, deliberately, choosing each word with the same care I'd use writing critical documentation at work. Don't come home tonight. We'll handle logistics later. I read it over 3 times, checked for ambiguity, made sure the message was clear, direct, and left no room for misinterpretation. Then I sent it. The message showed as delivered immediately, then read. 3 dots appeared. She was typing a response. I turned off my phone, held down the power button until the screen went black, until the last bit of light faded and I was left standing under the streetlight with nothing but the sound of insects and my own breathing. I didn't go home that night. I walked until I found a hotel, one of those mid-range chains with clean sheets and anonymous rooms, the kind of place business travelers use and forget. The lobby smelled like industrial carpet cleaner. The clerk barely looked at me as I checked in, just slid a key card across the counter and pointed toward the elevators. The room was exactly what I expected. Beige walls, abstract art that meant nothing, a bed with too many pillows, a TV bolted to the wall. I took a shower, washing away the evening, watching the water circle the drain. Then I lay down on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling, and fell asleep within minutes. I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m., exactly when my alarm would normally go off if I'd set one, which I hadn't. My body kept its rhythms regardless of circumstance. I had breakfast in the hotel restaurant. Mediocre scrambled eggs, decent coffee, toast that was slightly too cold. The room was nearly empty. A businessman in a wrinkled suit sat in one corner, typing on a laptop. A family with small children occupied a table near the window, the parents looking exhausted while the kids argued over who got the last packet of jelly. I made a list on a hotel notepad. 1. Change the locks. 2. Contact a lawyer. 3. Separate finances. 4. Remove her access to shared accounts. 5. Pack her essentials and arrange for pickup. 6. Change passwords on all shared services. 7. Update emergency contacts. 8. Inform necessary parties, building management, utilities, etc. I worked through the list methodically. By 9 a.m., I'd found a locksmith who could come by noon. By 10 a.m., I'd spoken to a lawyer. A woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in divorce and separation, came highly recommended, and had a no-nonsense approach I appreciated. She asked if I wanted to try mediation first. I said no. She asked if there was any chance of reconciliation. I said no. She said she'd draft separation paperwork and send it over by end of day. By 11 a.m., I'd transferred money from our joint accounts into a new account in my name only. Exactly half. Not $1 more, not $1 less. Changed the passwords on our shared streaming services, cloud storage, utilities portal, everything we'd set up together over the years. The locksmith arrived at 12:15 p.m. Professional, efficient, had the locks changed within an hour, gave me 3 new sets of keys and a receipt. Didn't ask questions about why I was changing the locks in the middle of a weekday. Sarah tried calling again around midday, multiple times. My phone was back on by then, but I'd blocked her number. Not out of anger, out of necessity. Because I knew if I answered, she'd try to negotiate, try to explain, try to leverage our history, our shared investment in the relationship, our mutual friends and families. She'd try to make me doubt my decision, question my process, reconsider my conclusion. I didn't need to hear it, but she found ways around the block. Called from other numbers. Her mother's phone, a friend's phone, numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. Listened to none of them. She sent texts from different apps, email, messages through social media, each one escalating in tone. Please talk to me. This is insane. You can't just lock me out of my own house. I have rights. You can't do this. My lawyer says this is illegal. You're being abusive. I'm calling the police. I replied exactly once from my email so there would be a documented trail. Your personal belongings have been packed and are in the garage. You may retrieve them at your convenience. Please coordinate a time through my lawyer, whose contact information is copied on this email. All separation documents will be sent through legal representation. Do not contact me directly. All further communication should go through counsel. I copied Patricia Chen on the email. Hit send. Then I set up filters to automatically archive anything from Sarah's email address, her phone number, any account associated with her. That evening, I went through the house room by room, packed her clothes, her toiletries, her books, her shoes, everything that was clearly hers. I was systematic about it, folded everything neatly, used sturdy boxes, labeled them clearly. This wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about closure, about completing the process. I found things I'd forgotten about, photos from vacations we'd taken, a sweatshirt of mine she'd claimed as hers, birthday cards I'd given her over the years, saved in a drawer. I packed them all without reading them, without lingering on memories. They were data points from a previous version of reality that no longer applied. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. The garage was full of boxes, 23 in total. 5 years of shared life, reduced to containers that could be moved by one person making multiple trips. I went to bed in a house that was finally completely mine. People asked me later if I regretted it, if I'd acted too quickly, if I should have tried to work it out, tried therapy, tried separation instead of divorce, given her a chance to earn back trust. The answer is no. Trust isn't something you repair with apologies. It's not a broken object you can fix with the right tools and enough patience. It's a foundation. And once it's compromised, everything built on it becomes unstable. You can patch it, you can reinforce it, you can pretend it's solid, but you'll always know it's not. You'll always be wondering when the next crack will appear, when the next failure will happen, when you'll discover what else you missed while you were busy believing in the integrity of the structure. Sarah didn't cheat on me because of some fleeting temptation she couldn't resist. She didn't make a single mistake in a moment of weakness. She planned it. She executed it over weeks, maybe months. She brought someone into our home, into our bed, into the spaces we'd built together. She coordinated around my schedule. She discussed my routines with him. She used my predictability as a tool to facilitate her deception. And when she finally told me, it wasn't because she wanted to make things right. It wasn't because guilt had become unbearable and she needed to confess for my sake. It was because she wanted to feel better about herself. She wanted to transfer the burden of knowledge onto me so she could walk into that party with a clear conscience. She wanted absolution without consequence. She thought I'd absorb the damage because that's what I always did. Stay calm, stay rational, keep the system running, maintain stability at all costs. But there's a difference between calm and passive, between rational and compliant, between choosing not to react emotionally and accepting unacceptable behavior. I didn't leave because I was angry. Anger implies an emotional reaction, a loss of control. What I felt was clarity, the kind of absolute certainty that comes when you finally see a situation for exactly what it is, stripped of hope and history and the stories you've been telling yourself about what your life is supposed to be. The contract was void, not because of one violation, but because the entire foundation it was built on had never existed. She'd been operating under different terms than I had, playing a different game while I thought we were on the same team. Once you see that clearly, once you understand that the relationship you thought you had was never actually the relationship you were in, there's no reason to stay. No amount of couples therapy or communication exercises or time apart can rebuild something that was never solid to begin with. Some people called me cold for how I handled it, said I should have given her a chance to explain, should have let her apologize properly, should have considered the good times we'd had, the investment we'd made, the years we'd spent building a life together. But those people didn't see the photos, didn't read the messages, didn't understand the level of calculation involved in betraying someone while maintaining perfect normalcy. The ability to kiss me goodbye in the morning, spend the afternoon with someone else in our bed, and then come home and ask me how my day was as if nothing had happened. That's not a mistake. That's not a momentary lapse in judgment. That's a deliberate choice made over and over again, each time requiring active deception, each time prioritizing her wants over any basic respect for me or our marriage. My lawyer, Patricia, asked me during one of our meetings if I wanted to pursue any kind of confrontation, if I wanted to use the photos as leverage, make things difficult for Sarah, ensure she understood the full weight of what she'd done. I said no, not because I forgave her, but because I didn't need her to understand. I didn't need closure that required her participation. I didn't need an apology or an explanation or any form of acknowledgement that what she'd done was wrong. I knew what she'd done. I knew what it meant. That was sufficient. Revenge would have required me to maintain a connection to her, to invest more time and energy into someone who'd proven they weren't worthy of either. It would have meant prolonging the ending, drawing out the process, staying entangled in the mess she'd created. I wanted the opposite of that. I wanted clean separation, complete extraction. The kind of ending where you remove yourself entirely from the situation and let the other person deal with the consequences of their choices without your involvement. Sarah tried a few more times to reach me, through friends, through family members who thought I was being too harsh. Her mother called me, a woman I'd always gotten along with, who I'd shared holidays and birthdays with over the years. She told me that Sarah was devastated, that she'd made a terrible mistake, but she loved me, that marriages went through rough patches, and this could be overcome if I just give it a chance. I told her, politely but firmly, that this wasn't a rough patch, that the marriage was over, that Sarah could keep whatever narrative she needed to tell herself and others, but I wouldn't be participating in it. I thanked her for calling and said I hoped she'd understand this wasn't personal toward her. Then I ended the call. A mutual friend, someone I'd known longer than I'd known Sarah, sent me a long message about forgiveness, about how holding on to anger would only hurt me, about how people make mistakes and everyone deserves a second chance. I didn't respond for a few days. When I did, I kept it simple. I'm not angry, I'm done. There's a difference. He wrote back asking what that meant. I didn't reply, because I'd already explained it as clearly as I could, and if he didn't understand the difference between emotional reaction and rational conclusion, between holding a grudge and simply withdrawing from a failed investment, then explaining further wouldn't help. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Sarah contested nothing, not the division of assets, not the timeline, not the terms, maybe because her lawyer advised her that fighting would only expose the affair to more scrutiny, maybe because she finally understood that I wasn't negotiating, maybe because she'd moved on and didn't care anymore. I didn't ask, didn't wonder about her motivations, didn't keep track of what she was doing or who she was seeing. I signed the papers when they arrived, returned them to Patricia, and went back to work. Friends asked if I was dating yet, if I was ready to move on, if I'd learned anything about what I wanted in a future relationship. I told them I was fine, that I wasn't actively looking but wasn't opposed to it either, that I'd learned plenty but didn't feel like dissecting my failed marriage as entertainment for people who hadn't lived through it. What I actually learned, what I didn't say out loud because it would sound harsh, was this. People tell you who they are through their actions, not their words. And when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them the first time. Not the first time they tell you, the first time they show you. Sarah showed me that she was someone who could compartmentalize betrayal, who could plan deception while maintaining intimacy, who could prioritize her own needs so completely that my dignity, my trust, and my right to make informed choices about my own life didn't factor into her decision-making at all. She showed me that once in the car. Everything after that was just confirmation. I didn't need more data. I didn't need to see if she could change or grow or become someone different. I'd seen enough to reach a conclusion. And once you have sufficient data to make a decision, gathering more data is just procrastination. Some people probably think I'm damaged from it, that I'm now cynical or closed off or incapable of trusting anyone new, but that's not it at all. I'm the same person I was before. Calm, methodical, willing to invest in things that prove themselves worthy of investment. I don't trust less, I just trust more carefully. I don't love less, I just love more selectively. I built good boundaries and I maintain them. I pay attention to patterns, not promises. I watch what people do, not what they say they'll do. And when those things don't align, when words and actions diverge, I don't make excuses or give the benefit of the doubt or wait to see if things improve. I simply update my understanding of reality and act accordingly. That's not damage. That's adaptation. That's learning. A year later, I ran into Sarah at a coffee shop. Not the 24-hour place where I'd sat that night, but a different one, nicer, in a part of town we used to frequent together. I was meeting a colleague to discuss a project. She was there with friends, laughing at something someone had said. We made eye contact. She looked surprised, then guilty, then uncertain about whether to acknowledge me or pretend she hadn't seen me. I nodded once. A simple acknowledgement, neither friendly nor hostile. Just recognition that we both existed in the same space for a moment. She nodded back. Then I turned back to my colleague and continued our conversation. That was it. No dramatic confrontation, no unfinished business, no need to say anything that hadn't already been said through actions and silence. She was someone I used to know, someone who taught me valuable things about trust and boundaries and the importance of aligning your life with people whose values match your own, but she wasn't part of my life anymore, and I was fine with that. Better than fine, actually. Because here's what I learned from that night, from that walk, from that entire experience. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply walk away. No explanations, no arguments, no attempts to make the other person understand your perspective, just a clean break, a clear boundary, a definitive end. You don't owe anyone your continued presence in their life just because you were there before. You don't owe anyone a chance to change your mind just because they regret their choices. You don't owe anyone forgiveness or understanding or patience with their process of becoming a better person. You can simply decide that the cost of continuing is higher than the value of what you'd be continuing and act accordingly. That's not cruelty. That's not coldness. That's not being unforgiving or harsh or unable to see people's humanity. That's just having standards and maintaining them, even when it's hard, even when people tell you you're wrong, even when the easier path would be to absorb the damage and carry on because that's what's expected. I walked away from that car because staying would have meant accepting a version of reality where my boundaries, my dignity, and my right to be in a relationship built on mutual respect mattered less than her need to be forgiven. I walked away because the alternative was staying. And staying would have cost me more than leaving ever could. I don't regret it. Not for a second. And I'd do it again exactly the same way. Because some contracts, once broken, can't be repaired. They can only be terminated. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start building something new. Something with a solid foundation, something that won't require you to compromise your core values just to keep it standing. That's worth walking away for, every single time.